Hey guys, welcome back. BDCKR here. We're back with Season 4, Episode 19 of our Q&A&T video series. To start out, got a little clip here. You wanna...
Yeah, I love when you time it just right so the Earth 2 team is about to stun you, but you do a special and you totally knock them out as they come in. I love that.
So there we go. Started out with a little bit of gameplay, but we can get into the questions now. The first one comes from Beeky, or Becky with two E's, I don't know, something. And
it's like Brandy with two E's.
And then in two asterisks, it says CS and MC.
If anybody gets that Brandy illusion, I want to hear it in the comments.
Okay. And they say, I get matched against Raven 40% of the time, and when I lose, it is always against her. Any tips to counter? I do it by using Rebirth Raven and use a super when the opponent Raven is 50% health.
I feel like we've gone over this before. I'd actually considered making a video a long time ago, but we never did. But we just answered it a bunch of times, I think. But, you know, over the course of hundreds of videos, it probably isn't that easy to find. So maybe it's worth revisiting.
Yeah.
That, because Raven is still good. She's one of the older characters, but she's still pretty effective in the current meta.
Yeah, and I mean, she's good in Survivor, too, pretty consistent.
Oh, yeah, she's almost necessary. When the opponent has that much health, the health swap makes a huge difference. The same way... damage over time that's scales up to the opponent's health makes a huge difference. So two broad strategies are you can either trigger her passive twice, just trigger the passive, ignore it, don't worry about it, and just be done with it, or you try to trigger her passive 0 times.
Yeah, I mean, technically you can trigger passive once, but there's no actual like usefulness to that strategy.
Right. So basically, you trigger it once when you failed at the triggering it 0 times.
Yeah.
So triggering it twice works really the best if you've got someone with massive damage on a multi-hit special. And case in point is Flashpoint Deathstroke. So when we're playing a Flashpoint team and you see us facing Raven, we just make sure we have enough power, we do a special, and over the course of that one special, it can easily trigger twice and knock her out.
Yeah.
And when Raven comes in, the hardest part isn't actually that we lose health. At least for me, it's not. The hardest part is that she gains health.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I don't care if we lose health. It's not a bad trade-off that we have one guy. You're sick, eh?
I am a little sick.
Oh, that's too bad.
Show must go on.
All right. That shows real dedication. So she gains health, so we need to do more damage, right?
Yeah.
So if you're going to trigger a passive, it's even better if you trigger it when your own character has lower health. The one thing you actually really want to avoid when triggering a passive is to let her trigger it on 2 different guys, because then you're gonna that loss of health is actually gonna hurt you. Because when you trigger it on the same guy, he's already down, right? I mean, it's marginal the difference between the first time and the second time. Oh, easiest is also when she's the last opponent to tag in, because then you know if you've got a 3-on-1 or a 2-on-1 advantage, so you don't need to worry about losing one person to her passive. Like you don't care, like it makes no difference, right?
Yeah.
I don't like to wait her out. What I don't like to do is when she's in, one strategy I've seen people use is that you just stall and you wait until she tags out, mainly because it slows down the fight, but sort of a second point is that her teammates get power
While they're sitting on the bench, yeah.
right, and then they tag in, tag out. That makes the fight much harder to manage, right? Oh, you know what makes me think of? It's like Killing Joker, right? Even though he's probably actually more difficult to fight when he comes in really early, but I also don't like to wait him out. And one strategy when you've got Killing Joker on your own team is to make him strong enough so that if somebody who's waiting for him to tag out gets really punished by his basic attacks.
Yeah, they just get sliced up.
Right, because it's easy if you're facing Killing Joker that's got really low health, that's weaker than the other guys by a lot.
Oh yeah, especially when people, I remember when he first came out, people were like, you know, why would you bother leading him, right?
Yes.
His point is dying.
Yes.
And I think we had specifically a video that was like, this is exactly why you elite him, because that lets him whack people.
Yeah, if I remember, I'm going to link that in our video. But, I mean, he was, back in the day, you could, if he was on par with the other guys, he could actually wipe out the rest of the team himself.
Yeah.
Even before his passive triggered. Because he's got relatively high damage compared to health.
Yeah, glass cannons are good in their own right.
Right. So the other option, so Raven, we were just talking about triggering her passive twice. The other option is to try to not trigger her passive at all. And so we all know that the health swap triggers at 20% health. If you bring her damage down to just above 20%, and that's the hardest part to estimate, a good single hit special or a high damage swipe hit that you can sometimes get with someone like Flashpoint Batman, and you know it's enough based on her numbers and whatever gear she's got, to bring her down. You drop her from slightly above 20% to below 0%, and then she's done. So a few examples of guys with good one-hit specials. Some of the Supermen, the original Superman one-hit special.
Yeah.
Doomsday. Now, there's some really good one-hit special twos, and the best is probably Harley Quinn's and Ares, actually, because they're both unblockable.
Yeah.
There's some multi-hit specials that work if they're not equal damage hits, right? So Arkham Knight Batman, for example, he's got a backloaded special 2. So the first few hits do very little damage, and the last hit does huge damage. And Arkham Origins Batman special works the same way. Even though it's a bunch of hits, they're not all exactly the same.
Yeah, and if you got like Batgirl, for example, geared up for the stun stuff, she can do a crazy amount of damage with that one hit on her special 1.
Absolutely,
She has a backloaded special 1, so it's a little bit harder because it's just a special 1, but if you got her geared up like that, she has potential for more than enough damage.
So there you go, Luchador Bane too, when we're talking like that.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure you could find other ones. I'm sure if you think about it, there's a lot more, but those are just some specific examples.
Yeah, and the other thing to watch out for with Raven is you don't give her any damage over time, right? Because you might trigger her passive when you don't want to, and it might be on the wrong guy. Now, some people on defense, what I've seen is they give her Fourth World Gears for defense so that she's more likely to health swap, since it makes it harder to skip right past her 20% because, she revives and then there's sort of like 2 chances to screw up.
Or, I mean, any other significant tank gears. When she's geared out as a tank, she's really the hardest strategically to deal with.
Right. In that case, I actually prefer to trigger her passive twice, because if she tags out before you can finish her off, well, not because. If she tags out before you can finish her off, keep your low health guy safe, so they're the one that does it. But in teams where I actually have splash damage, I love it because then it gives me more chance to do splash damage on everybody else. So yeah, it might cost me health, but it costs them even more.
Yeah.
So those are just general strategies for Raven. There's no one right answer, and it depends really on your team makeup and who you've got on your team.
So there we go. Our next question comes from what I'm assuming is Laterino Craperino.
Right, but we were just talking about this name before. So an A with 1 T after it is a long A, so A, late. But an A with 1 P after it, so it looks like the intention is Craperino, but it could actually be Craperino. Like drapes.
Yeah. It might not come across in the videos, but we actually do make an effort to pronounce people's names correctly. So we're just maybe not very good at it.
That's true.
And by we, I mean me. I maybe am not very good at it. I don't know. I'm trying to assume joint responsibility with you.
Mainly because you do more of the reading of the names, so it means that I end up avoiding the potential pitfalls.
We'll never know who's actually better at pronouncing names unless we do a head-to-head. I guess that's one of science's unanswerable questions.
Yes.
Okay, this person, the question that they ask is Flashpoint, or this is a comment, not a question,
right.
I guess, if we're being technical about it. It's something we're going to talk about.
Sure.
They say Flashpoint on defense is completely broken. So much offense, double crit damage, and defense, 40% special reflect. Full heal in 1 combo ender, and it probably knocks out a character. Literally no flaws.
Okay, so the 2 things that you're talking about are inherent in the Flashpoint team, which is their passives. So double crit damage, which is Flashpoint Batman. The 40% special reflect, which is Flashpoint Aquaman. But the third thing you're talking about, I think you're talking about using the overpowered super, which is gearing. So we're talking about the team in general, and maybe partly it's when you gear them properly.
And how you're playing against them in particular.
Right.
And specific
that matters. Yeah, and the reason why that matters a bit is because I actually mind facing the Flashpoint team less than I mind the Red Sun team that has Green Lantern.
Yeah.
One thing I realized early on playing Injustice is that if I want to win, I need to work within the rules and the setup as they are, and not the way I want it to be. Because it might feel like the extra damage is bad, but doing less damage, having your damage limited, is even worse. And all right, so you know how from the very beginning we've done we've put a focus on crit chance and crit damage.
Yeah.
Because it's actually the most efficient way to use your augmentations and the most advantageous way to make your team better, so that your fights are faster.
Yeah.
And I guess the related point is, they're trouble on defense, but if you're set up properly and you've got the right strategy and you know what you're doing, then their health isn't even that high. And I'm willing to take the 40% reflected damage because it's not like it's Raging Black Adam where you're reflecting more damage. If they're taking 40%, I'm doing 100.
Yeah.
So, and as far as offense goes, as you can probably see in the video, we're finding that this Arkham Asylum team is even better as far as speed and battle points over time.
I think for fighting defensive teams, it's always harder to fight tanky teams as opposed to teams that have better damage, or not always. I think as a rule of thumb, because the things that we value are finishing fights quick.
Yep.
And that means knocking people out quick. So ideally, when you don't screw up, you aren't taking that much damage.
Right.
So damage is an avoidable thing, which is almost like a punishment for mistakes or an inevitability, but something that you can mitigate depending on who you're facing off against. Right. So the reason why we like the Red Sun team way less when we're fighting against them is because no matter what we do, we're doing way less damage, we're doing it way slower. And when that happens, it just gives you more time to be hit, more time to screw up, which matters to me more. Faster fights that you either win or lose quicker are almost better, even if you're at a higher risk of losing, because they let you know really quick where it's at, how it's going to go, and you know how it's going to play out because it just happens, and you don't have to kind of draw it out.
You know that what that makes me think of, and it's not really connected, but it's the same way in baseball. There's the three outcomes where that Adam Dunn I think was sort of the best at is as a hitter, a walk, a strikeout, or a home run.
Yeah.
So they involve nothing else except for the pitcher and the batter.
Yeah.
So it's that you're in or you're out, and it's almost way more exciting like that because there's, well, I mean, maybe it's not, but I feel like when it drags out, I'm not enjoying it nearly as much. And I like those, there's a term for it in baseball. I can't even remember what it is. But I feel that same way about Injustice, where I want it to be done. I want to win or I want to lose, and I don't want it to be like a 10-minute kind of heel fest.
So there we go. Our next comment comes from Josh, and this is going to be just kind of a springboard to talk about our one of our recent videos. This is the Don't Stop Me Now taking 0 basic damage with the Regime Nightwing video. And they say, the funniest part is the description where it says ad revenue 0, basic damage 0.
Alright, so I want to talk a little bit about this, because the inspiration for that video was you. That was all the artistic kind of inspiration. That all was you. Yeah,
but the cool thing is that the part that this person thought was the funniest, the joke actually, in the description was totally you.
Yeah.
So that was my video, but that was totally your joke.
Alright, so tell me, how did this come together? Alright, so what made you think of doing this video, which is totally not our style?
So Queen, I love Queen, and I think my favorite Queen song is that song, Don't Stop Me Now. I think it's a real fun song. It's really kind of light, and I absolutely love the song. So we were talking about, I think I actually got the idea for this when we were first talking about the Gingold Soda and Nightwing taking 0 damage.
Right.
I was just there's always kind of stuff like that where I'm aware of, I would say, more talented YouTubers doing kind of more heavily edited stuff, having cuts, and I watch enough of that kind of YouTube, although I think less and less now, that I have a certain mind for what it would look like if I were to do it, and there's a lot of stuff that I totally can't do. I can't do anything with chroma keying or green screening. I can't do anything complicated, but there's some really basic stuff that I can do involving, speeding up or slowing down clips, and syncopating stuff is just a method of, is just an issue of clipping it the right way.
Right, because I love what Edgar Wright did in Baby Driver in that first opening scene, where everything's in sync with the movie.
Oh yeah, totally.
Or the action on the film, visually, I mean.
And so, there's a really kind of jaunty song that I love that makes me feel always a little powerful when I hear it. I don't know if that's embarrassing to say. And there's this really kind of crazy cool moment of somebody just taking no damage. And it's like, yeah, you know what? You try and stop me, right? Just
right.
So
especially when their stats are just way higher, right? Like these are high level golds, trying to lay the beat down on a silver.
Yeah. So I just had the idea. I threw it together. Honestly, I feel like I could have spent a little more time on it. Especially near the end. I wanted to have kind of the zoom with each hit. Yeah. But I wanted to find a good place to sync it to, and so not perfect. Again, a little rough around the edges. I think I'm happy with it. I think it's what I wanted. It gets across what I wanted, even if it's not exactly what I envisioned.
Right.
And I don't know. It just one thing that was cool. Obviously, we're using a Queen song.
Right.
There was 0% chance that we were ever going to be able to play a single ad before that video that we would be able to see a cent from.
Right. I guess that was the joke. All right. So that was my part. And the idea, and what I got to do is really thank the patrons that we have on Patreon, because when we first started doing this, I mean, we were doing it for nothing.
Yeah.
And then when we started getting ad revenue, it was really, once you've had a taste of it, it's hard to say, well, I'm just going to do some videos and throw it away.
Yeah. So it was interesting. I had the idea. I thought it would be funny. I kind of made the video for me.
Yeah.
First and foremost. And so that was one of the reasons that I was okay with putting it up and knowing that I wasn't going to get a cent from it, because I was like, I think this is a funny idea. It's not going to take me that long. It's the amount of time it took us is actually probably comparable to our regular videos, actually. But one of the things that was really cool is like, I could look at Patreon and go, no matter what happens, there's people who are giving us money just because they like us and the stuff we make. And they're giving us way more money than I could ever lose out on from just like a single little one-off video like this.
Right.
So I felt totally fine just putting it up as is, because then
it's freedom, right? Like
I don't have to compromise. I don't have to do some royalty-free song. I don't have to go looking for it. I know exactly what I want. I want Queen.
So you can stay close to your original vision.
Yeah, so I can just put Queen on it, and we say original vision like it's some grand artistic.
But that makes you the artist and me the sellout, which I'm totally okay with.
I wouldn't call myself an artist. That seems
pretentious.
Just very self-congratulatory. It's like, oh man, I think what I have here is something very special.
Okay, 'cause you know what, the way why I have to say that though is there's very few videos of ours that I will actually go back and watch, and that one I've actually gone back and watched a few times.
Yeah. I think I'm happy with it, how it came out. Huge thanks, just as always, to the patrons. Just real specifically with that video, it is, no small part because of you.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a direct line where we spent it on something that we used to make the video, but I think it does. It allows us the comfort, the freedom, it changes our mindset a little bit, which is kind of freeing.
Yeah. And I think one last thing about the video that's really cool. When you make a video like that, it was fun, because I was like, I was invested in a different way than our normal videos, and also because there was no ad revenue, looking at the metrics really mattered a lot more to me.
Right.
And it was a cool opportunity to step back and look at, like, what is 2,000 people watching the video? Like, what does that mean? And it's a lot of people.
Sure.
And what is, like, 100 people liking it? And what is, like, positive comments mean? And we always appreciate them. But it's kind of different when you look at, like, 2,000, 2,500, however many views it's at right now, and you think, oh, so what's that, a couple bucks? Versus when you look at it and think about, like, the people watching it, they're totally different things. So I think it was good. I don't know about you, but it was good for me to remind myself that every time we make a buck, that's like 1,000 people
that's
watching.
That's pretty cool. Right.
And that's cool in its own right. That's, I think, cooler than the money could ever be.
I can't find anything to disagree with there.
Yeah. So there we go. Our final question comes from Kenneth Tong, and they say, "Hi BDCKR, could you talk a little bit about Injustice's big 5th year anniversary update that was supposed to happen, I think, last month? Hollywood Shono, another Injustice YouTuber, talked about this in one of his earlier videos."
Alright, so I guess, it's been a 5-year anniversary. It has not been 5 years since we played it, because even though for iOS, April the 3rd was the 5-year anniversary, the 5-year anniversary for Android won't come until November. So they've got a little bit of room before, the anniversary is passed. But here's the problem with stuff like that, right? I mean, we've been around long enough that we've seen a lot of predictions about the game, and it seems like there's really as much chance for a prediction to be wrong as it is right.
Yeah.
It's sort of arbitrary. You know, people, it's a bit of wishful thinking, right? Well, sort of. When people predict good stuff, it's wishful thinking, but then we see almost as many people predicting the death of Injustice. And they've been predicting the death of Injustice for the last couple of years, I think.
Yeah, I think it's accurate to say that it's definitely slowed down. That definitely less content is being produced. And I think it would be fair to say that it's unlikely that we're ever going to get the same kind of regular and like just high volume updates that we got at one point. But I think it's impossible to say when or if the game is going to die. I think there's definitely going to be an expiration date at some point, right?
For sure.
But I think we've proven as a community that we're pretty consistently bad at predicting when that's going to be.
Right. And what's funny is, if anything, in the last maybe few months, with not a lot of new content, like you were saying about the metrics, I've actually had a bit of fun looking at them, and our channel in the different measures that we've got, whether it's view time or revenue or views, has actually improved in the last couple months.
Yeah, and I mean, whether or not that's people like actually becoming more dedicated to our channel, and I think that's part of it. I think there are, like, especially when you look at the ability for us to have any Patreon supporters at all, that shows that there are a subset of people that are more dedicated to us and our content than maybe I ever thought there would be.
Right.
I think you still have to be kind of playing Injustice. I feel like you can't not play Injustice at all, or you have to be still a little invested in Injustice to want to watch our videos. So I think that says something about.
Yeah, the fact that it's even a thing, that Injustice, which came out 5 years ago, still has. Well, we still enjoy playing it. I definitely do. I'm having a lot of fun. I'm discovering new things about it all the time. It's kind of spectacular to me. It is a mobile game, right?
Yeah.
Free to play.
It's good. And I think one thing that they've done really well with gear is new gear coming in really does kind of reinvigorate the game and the meta, especially when the gear is like some really good new legendary stuff with like almost all the gear we've seen recently. There's a lot of opportunities to put it on people and change the way you play the game.
Right. And it makes so much more fun when you can use your whole roster.
I think the new gear is an example of a little bit of new content going a very long way into making the game fun and exciting again, which is really good.
Which is a great way to end this video, I think, on that sentiment.
Yeah. So there we go. Thank you guys so much for watching. And
a special thank you for our patrons on Patreon. Alberto Jr. Camarillo, iProfit.
Yep.
Daniel Simonson, and Lane, who continues to support us in these funky videos that we make about Injustice. Yeah, so thank you guys all so much for watching. Special thank you to our patrons, but we appreciate everybody. That's right. We'll see you next time. Komoda.